the reconcile data looks something like this. For instance, if it, as I said previously, it's a recapture method. So if you have a group size of 4, and observer 1 hasn't seen it, but observer 2 has seen it, the way we enter is 4, 0, 1. It just basically says observer 1 hasn't and observer 2 has seen it, and that's what the comment says here. If, let's say, the data is like, if there's a group of 6 that observer 1 has seen, but observer 2 hasn't, the data gets inputted as 610, being that observer 1 has cited the group and not observer 2. And if there was a, let's say, a group of 10, which both observer 1 and observer 2 saw, then it gets inputted as 1011, meaning that both observers have cited the group. What does the data sheet look like? And sorry, again, this is a lot to take in, but I'll walk you all through this. So this data sheet that you see is for each block. So each block will have a data sheet like this. And this is not a hard and fast rule, but this is just an indicative one. So let's say the block. So the study area, which is the larger area within which there is a block called Farah, is called Kibber. The survey was done on the 20th of June 2018. The start time for observer 1 was 8:45, and he or she ended at about 1:10. And he or she walked about 13.2 kilometers. So the way the data gets inputted, and I can share all these data sheets with everyone, so everyone's clear, is obviously you write your block name, what was the group size that you saw, who was the observer, in this case it was Kamal, where did he or she see the ungulates. This can be the observer's latitude and longitude. Sometimes in notes you can write, it was below the peak, or maybe there are area names for those locations. When did he or she see the group? And then the age-sex classification, which we'll come to in a bit. Basically there were 7 adult females, there were 5 sub-adult females who are younger females, 6 yearlings. These are just codes. 2 young males, C1 is class 1 young males, so on and so forth. And 3 unclassified. They couldn't classify them. But there's 31 blue sheep. And then Kamal also saw another group of 7 at this location at this time. 4 females and 3 young. But this group was an ibex group and not a blue sheep group, right? In the same block, the second observer started about half an hour later, as you can see, ended about 15 minutes later, so he or she walked a little faster, but that's okay because they covered the same distance and the same area, of course, more importantly, the same block. And as you can see, Rinchin, who is the second observer, has seen a group of 31 at the location that's pointed here at about 11 o'clock with this 8-6 classification, and it's a blue sheep, and it's at the top of the peak. So already, as you can see, later when they would join together and talk to each other, okay, how many did you see? Kamal would say, I saw 2 groups. Rinchin would say, I saw 1. So already, one group has been missed by Rinchin, right? Which is okay. Just comment in the chat. Stefan, you can ask now. Sure, it will be better.
Yeah, two comments on one question on this.
Yeah.
Do you assume that one observer is always one person, or do you typically deploy teams of 2 or 3 people as one observer?
Yeah, super question, Stefan. Thank you for asking. You can deploy as many people as quote-unquote observer or a team of observer, as long as they're equal. So what I mean by that is observer 1 can be 2 people, but then observer 2 should also be 2 people, because as you can already see, if observer 1 is 2 people, whereas observer 2 is 1 person, there is a difference in effort, which can then impact detection. So so you can do 2 people, even 3 people sometimes for security. I mean, more obviously becomes a bit of a nuisance, but yeah.
Okay, good to know, because typically it's practical to have one person who is writing, one person who is somehow leading, like an experienced expert. It can be the same person as is doing the writing, and then you need maybe one local person who is very good in detecting the animals. So the typical team would consist of 2 or better 3 people in our case. This is one. And the second comment is that in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, in general in Central Asia, in my projects, we always record also a sighting angle, so vertical angle towards the animals, and approximate distance and azimuth, so angle from
Yes,
north, compass bearing, because by
sure.
this it is much easier than to determine if it had been the same group or a different one, because then you get not the observer location but the actual animal location
Yes,
calculated.
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what I want to say with the location, and thanks, Stefan, for bringing that up, because yeah, the point is the location is really for you to make sure you know where the ungulates are, and later to make sure the ungulate groups are the same. So one way of doing it is exactly what Stefan said, where you get the exact location of the ungulate. The other way, for instance, in my field sites in India, places have names and people know those names, within the larger Kibber area, within Farah, below the peak would be called Farah 2, for instance. So there are multiple strategies. But yes, thanks, Stefan, for that. So anyway, just quickly going along, as you can already see, there's another comment in the chat. Observing one particular group. Tashi asks, how much time on average would one team spend on one group? I would say as quick, just scan. If you find a group, identify them, what species they are, take the A6 classification and move on. So not spending a lot of time. I mean, I would say as quickly as possible, because you don't want to obviously indicate something to the second observer if he or she is in sight, right? So as quickly as possible, in a few minutes, if not less. So yes, already we can see, then when Rinchen and Kamal would come back and talk to each other, the 31 group size seems like it's similar, but, to make sure it's the same, they would obviously look into the 8-sex classification. And already, as you can see from Rinchen, he sees there are 2 class 1, i.e. young males. There's also 2 class 2s. There's also 2 class 3s. There's also 4 class 4s, bigger males. There's 7 adult females, and there's 9 adult females here. So there's something maybe different happening. And there's 5 subadult females or young females, also 5. And there's 7 young, and there's 6 here. So there's enough information between the 2 of them to sort of agree that, this 31 is probably the same group, even though, let's say, these 3 are unidentified, we're probably more likely to be, those 2 of those 3 would be a female and 1 young. So, parsimony would suggest that those 2 are similar groups as well, and their locations are not too far away. Whereas the group 7 clearly was missed by Rinchen. So how would this field data sheet then transform into a sort of a master reconciled data sheet? As you can see, the way I put it is, we'll have to structure it into the sort of capture framework, the 1001 framework, and the 31 group was captured by both. So it's 1, and then you individually put, let's say, the classification for observer 1 and observer 2. This is just for future studies if you want to look at how sex ratios might change, for instance, or to justify to somebody why they were 1-1, and obviously the species. And clearly, the 7 was observed by observer 1 and not by observer 2, and hence 1-0, and those were ibex. And obviously, there's no classification for observer 2. So just a sense of how the field method really works. So now quickly, over the next 20 minutes, what we'll do is we'll do a quick virtual double observer survey. And, I would like everyone to have your own raw data sheets and sort of reconciled data sheets. And what we'll do is I will show you sort of different slides, maybe like 9 to 10 slides, as if you were walking in a valley as observer 1, right? So you record what you see. The data sheets will be like this. I'll just drop them into the chat quickly. I also have circulated them in the email. So if people already have them, can people just type in the chat that they already have them? If not, then I can subsequently just drop them into the chat. But yeah, this is what the raw data sheet will look like. So you can just, maybe make it in your book, or I have it already. Okay, Luciana, thanks. If people don't have it, can you just type it, then I'll make sure you have it. So I'll show you, let's say, a slide, and each slide will be a different ungulate group. So, first we'll do the survey as observer 1. And what you'll have to write is, okay, what was the group size? Where did you see it? What time did you see it? What age, sex was it? And which species was it? So we'll do it first as observer 1. Then we'll do it as observer 2. And subsequently, we will, sort of reconcile both these tables into one combined table of group size, whether it was captured by observer 1 or not, by observer 2 or not, what was the age-sex classification by observer 1, by observer 2, and what species was it? I'm just going to check the chat. Oh, great. Thanks, Luciano. So people, can you download the virtual GOS survey sheet that Luciano has put in the chat, because that's exactly what we'll be using. So just before we start, I just want to give a plug-in for age-sex classifications. As I was saying, that's something that we will use a lot to see if groups are similar or different. Again, it's highly variable between different species, of course. It's highly variable within species across geographies. But I'm going to be using some cartoons that a friend has made. So I just want to share with you what these are. So it's, you're not identifying them from scratch today, but just to sort of indicate what they look like. So this is what an ibex young would look like. They're quite small, just have a little bit of horns. This is what an ibex female would look like. Again, don't get worried about the subtleties. There's lots of differences, but just for today's exercise, that's what a female looks like. That's what a young male will look like for ibex. This is what we call class 1, when they're about 3 to 4 years old, depending on who you ask in which population, for instance. So that's a young male. That's sort of a little older male. It's called class 2. They're a little older than obviously class 1. And that's what a big sort of mature male would look like, class 3 or class 4 and beyond. So these are different age-sex classes that we will use to sort of really identify some of our groups. So this is the ibex one, but we'll also have a blue sheet in the virtual activity, but I will tell you guys what age-sex they are, just because there might be a bit of confusion. So great, we'll start now. So does everybody then have the sheet? And over the next maybe 10 minutes, we'll have to really concentrate. We'll be in sort of doing the survey and writing the data, because once we finish as observer 1 and observer 2, what I will do is we'll go into breakout rooms and we'll discuss with our team and come back with a reconciled data set to really see, firsthand how the observer works. Cool. Is that great? Shall we do that? Can I just see in the chat if people are ready or if they need a couple of minutes? Is anyone? Yes. Okay. Super. Thanks, guys. Ready. Lovely. I love the energy of the group, guys. Who is observer 1 and observer 2? So yes, Stefan, for this exercise, each person will do it as observer 1 and 2, just so people get a sense of how it works. So first, we will all together do it as observer 1, write the data in our raw data sheets, and then do it as observer 2, write it in our observer 2 data sheets, and reconcile data later. Obviously, that's not the way we would do it in the field, but this is to really give you a sense of some subtleties that might pop up. So yeah, so individually, observer 1 and observer 2, and then in teams of 4 or 5, we'll reconcile data. Great, so let's start. So observer 1, all of us, we're ready. Our start time is at 9 a.m. Our block name, unfortunately, is the virtual Zoom session in not some beautiful mountain location. So we've started. This is our first observation. Just to clarify from the start, these are 2 young, 2 adult females, and 2 class 1 or young males, right? This is the time and the location. So we give everyone 2 minutes. And just to clarify, this arrow with the wand sort of shows which side, because we're walking, let's say, in a central river valley, very much like the central river valley of Kyrgyzstan that I spoke about, and we're surveying right and left. So there's one to the right. Just to make sure, this is how the data should be inputted for this particular observation. For observer 1, there was a group of 6. The location was right side top on the first ridge. It was at 9:20 a.m. There were 2 adult females, 2 class 1 or young males, and 2 young. And the species is ibex, right? And subsequently, we will fill in the other groups. Okay, so let's continue. Observation 2, sorry. Observer 1, observation 2. these are 2 females, and these are 2 class 4 adult males, and these are blue sheep. So I'll just wait for a couple of seconds while you input the data. Right, okay. Inputting the data, and we're going to move in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So observer 1 has walked along, and he or she has now seen his or her third observation. Look carefully and enter the data. And do type in the chat if I'm going too fast, please. So observation 3, these are ibex again, just to clarify, because I understand people might come from different areas and might not know the species. Remember to write the age, sex, time, and location, because you'll have to reconcile later. Moving on, observation 4. This is all observer 1, Iftikhar. So right now we're doing it as observer 1. We will do it as observer 2 after this. So all of this is observer 1. Now this is observer 1, observation 4. So just to help out a little, observer 1, observation 4 will be a group size of 7, time of 10:06, location would be left side bottom of the second ridge, and the age sex classification is 4 adult females and 3 young. Moving swiftly forward, observation 5 for observer 1. Again, just to help out, these are 3 blue sheep female and 3 blue sheep young. So that's observation 5, time and location. Moving swiftly forward, observation 6 for observer 1. Think about all the subtleties. Move in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That's observation 7 for observer 1. Observer 1 is seeing a lot today. It's his or her lucky day. So again, think about the group size, think about the age sex, the time, and the location. Moving forward again in 3, 2, 1. Observation 8, group of big males. I just can see the chat. Yes, sometimes not seeing things is also fine, guys. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So yeah, that's observation 8, and if I'm not mistaken, yeah, this is observation 9. Lots of females here. Make sure you count well and take all the data you need to talk to people later. I'm going to move forward in 3, 2, oh, is there something in the chat? It's not about writing speed. Yeah, honestly, in reality, obviously, this would be much slower and faster, and I apologize that I'm...
I think this is a very good point. because I have seen this, especially in hunting concessions and also in protected areas, where people wanted to show as many animals in as little as possible time to present how great their area is and their protection effort and so on. So let's see 10,000 argali in 5 days.
Sure.
And driving up before the observer recorded the animals. And this ends often up with incomplete recordings. This is what I have now at the moment, so that I have not the locations, not the times for several of the groups. And this is, I think, is actually a good point to demonstrate this, that the one who does the recording, he is the one who decides when the observer group can move on.
Yes, actually, that's a
very important point. I think.
Wonderful point. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up, Stefan. Actually, there's a section for 5 minutes. We'll talk about some of the issues with reconciling data, and this is one of the points I always tell people as well, and I'm guilty of course, sometimes. Two things that people always want to see more and then record more. That's not the point of it. The point is to take your time. Most importantly, not to disturb the animals, and then as importantly to record all the information you can in a calm and sort of collected manner, so that you can actually reconcile your data later. So yes, thanks for bringing that. So yes, observation 9 here, guys, with the females. So we'll swiftly move on. Observation 10, just to help out again, because these are not the best. These are class 2 males for blue sheep, and they're sort of like not too mature but not too young. And these are class 3, so they're just becoming mature. So yeah, 2 class 3 blue sheep and 2 class 2 blue sheep, and you have the time and location. So yeah, take your time, write your data, and we will yes, Justine says the 2 species will be analyzed separately. Yes, so yes, that's why taking the species name is important in the table. Okay, so we'll move on. Observation 11. These are ibex again. Think about the age, sex, think about the location and time. We'll move in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So, and this is the last group for observer 1. These are blue sheep again, and these are big males. So you can put them down as class 3 or class 4, as long as they're. And the reason why I wanted to put 2 species is because often in spaces, there will be more than 1 species. I mean, even if you're concerned, let's say only for ibex because it's a hunting concession or whatever, there might be 2 species or 3 species, even more likely 2, because the diversity isn't that high compared to some of the other regions. So it's useful to really enter data like that. So yes, moving on swiftly. That's okay, Iftikhar. If you miss second and third, maybe in your group, people can help you, and it's realistic. Okay, so that's the end for observer 1. Your end time was 2:15, and the location that you ended at was bridge 12, right? So we'll now swiftly move on in the same valley as observer 2, right? So in real time, that observer 2 would have started his or her survey just half an hour after observer 1, and he or she would have no idea of what we just saw, right? But just for illustrative purposes, we'll do it as both people. So now if I can ask you guys to start listing your answers in the second table of the raw data, which is the observer 2, and then we'll discuss later. Yeah? So ready in 3, 2, 1. So we're now observer 2. Hope everyone's ready. The start time is 9:30, and if you saw for observer 1, his or her start time was 9. So this observer is starting about 30 minutes after. Same valley. Let's see what he or she sees. So observer 2, the first observation is the following. So these are objects again. Time, location, and age, sex, and group size. And we move forward in 3, 2, and 1. These are blue sheep again, as hopefully most of us know by now. These are 2 females and 2 adult males. So that's the time, that's the location. Moving forward in 3, 2, and 1. That's observation 3. Lots of ibex. These are all male. Justine has just typed, these are many observations, these are lucky observers. I completely agree. We can chat about this in a bit. But in many of my Indian field sites, on a day we see 3 or 4 groups if we're lucky. But yeah, I thought having more observations it sort of helps a little bit better to understand the reconciliation, and hopefully doesn't confuse people, but we'll see. So yes, this group, all males again, all ibex. Think of the time, the location, and we'll move forward in 3, 2, and 1. So these are blue sheep again. Oh, and I do apologize because I'm rushing a little bit in the interest of time, of course, but in reality, you can spend more time, and all the points Stefan and EJ, and Justine were very pertinent. So these are female blue sheep and young blue sheep. Time and location. This is observer 2, observation 4. Moved on to observer 2, observation 5. These are ibex. It's a mixed group of females and male. The time and the location. And we'll move on in 3, 2, and 1. This is observer 2, observation number 6. It's a group of ibex. Again, a mixed group of females and males, but of 2 different age sex classes. And we'll move forward in 3, 2, and 1. males of ibex. We have the time and the location. This is observer 2, observation 7. We'll move forward in 3, 2, and 1. This is observation 8 for observer 2. All blue sheep. These small ones are young. The rest are females. Do think of the time and location. And we'll move forward in 3, 2, and 1. We're very close to nearing the end. This is an all-female group. This is observation 9 for observer 2. Take your time and write the data in the raw data for observer 2. And the time is the same as previous, Luciana, yes. So, which is possible because you can see two different species at the same time, maybe in two different locations. But good observation. And we'll move forward in 3, 2, and 1. Also a group of ibex, mixed group, the female, small male, a little older male, and mature male. This is observer 2, observation 10. That's the time and the location. And we'll move swiftly forward. And that's the end for observer 2 as well. Her end time is up here. And the location, as you might recall, is very similar to observer 1. So great. Now, what we will do is